been trying to make sure that every family on the island can find work and make a living and provide for their children. That's why our economic plan and our health care reform included help for Puerto Rico.
There's no one in the administration or in D.C. that's contemplating a federal bailout of Puerto Rico. But we do remain committed to working with Puerto Rico and their leaders.
Well, as you just saw in that interesting juxtaposition of sound bites, back in 2011, President Obama visited Puerto Rico, touted the progress of the Commonwealth, and committed to help. But as you just heard earlier this week, White House spokesman Josh Earnest said Puerto Rico should not expect a bailout from Washington. And Wednesday, Puerto Rico did come through on its payments, avoiding default, but the island Commonwealth still has a huge debt of $72 billion that it must pay in the coming months and years. So, where does this leave Puerto Rico as it struggles to relieve billions of dollars in debt? Joining us now, one of my old colleagues on Capitol Hill when he was the resident commissioner for Puerto Rico in the House, and then he served as governor of Puerto Rico, and now he joins us from Newsmax Washington, Luis Fortuno. Luis, it is so good to have you here on Newsmax Prime.
It is my pleasure, JD, again. Thank you.
Luis, this seems to be an economic spiral for Puerto Rico. What is the cause of the difficulties?
Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. We are natural-born citizens. We pay Social Security taxes, Medicare taxes, but we are, politically speaking, in limbo. So in that sense, the situation of Puerto Rico doesn't lend itself to actually provide the certainty that is required for investment. And a territory, our framers of the Constitution actually meant territories to last 20, 25 years, 30 years perhaps, but not 120. And that has to be addressed, and that's up to Washington to address it.
We thank Luis Fortuno for his time, and we certainly wish the people of Puerto Rico well. Now, reports this morning that because of the looming financial crisis due to its inability to pay debt, Puerto Rico has begun rationing water, closing schools, and watching its health care system collapse, with a whopping 45% of the people there living in poverty. According to an article in The Guardian, many Puerto Ricans could head for the U.S. mainland soon looking for a better life, and we'll definitely keep an eye on this story for you. Right now, we need to cast our eyes on the past for the story of one of our founding fathers who was so right and yet so wrong. In 1776, as a delegate to the Continental Congress, John Adams seconded the resolution of Virginia's Richard Henry Lee, declaring that the colonies ought to assert their independence from England. The Congress voted to approve Lee's resolution on July 2nd, which prompted Adams to write his wife Abigail that future generations of future generations of Americans would celebrate that date, which is, of course, today's date, forevermore. John Adams was part of the Committee of Five that helped draft the Declaration of Independence, and the Congress approved that wording on July 4th. So it is that date which we celebrate as our Independence Day. Adams was right about the Declaration and the subsequent celebration, but wrong on the date. However, in retrospect, those who put stock in numerology might suggest that Adams was understandably predisposed to the number 2 because, after all, as events developed, he became our second president. Tomorrow, July 3rd, we will not be here. We're getting a head start for July 4th. And speaking of the 4th, on Independence Day, remember to tune in at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific for my entire interview with Donald Trump. A very special edition of Newsmax Prime for the 4th. We'll be looking for you Monday night. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.